This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the caucus meeting of May 19th, 2020 to order. Present are council members Schuman, Limpert, Kelly, Broussard, Glassburn, Heeman, Williamson. The mayor, our Human Resources Director, Planning and Development Director, Law Director, Safety Service Director, and our guest this evening. Before we get to tonight's agenda, are there any additions or corrections to the caucus meeting minutes of May 5th, 2020? Seeing none, we have 3 pieces of legislation tonight to be considered for suspension of the rules. The first is on second reading, Ordinance 2020-53, transfer appropriations, and we heard this in Finance. Councilman Schuman.
So we had a pretty extensive meeting about this last week, and I've got a bang-up report to give. And I didn't have a problem with suspension. The director has asked for suspension, and the committee voted 3-0 in favor of suspension.
Thank you. Any objection to suspension? Seeing none. The next piece of legislation for consideration of the suspension of the rules is on first reading, Resolution 2020-56, a resolution establishing temporary outdoor patio dining areas and declaring an emergency. Councilwoman Heeman.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing.
She hasn't spoke yet.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Sorry, I had 2 things going here and one blew out. So that piece of legislation, I'm actually going to defer to Planning Director Lieber.
Thank you. Director Lieber.
Thank you, Madam President. The administration has created a draft policy that we're putting into place to allow for temporary patios for North Olmsted restaurants and bars consistent with other state regulations, liquor control laws, our city zoning code, and our building ordinances. We're trying to offer a simple administrative review of temporary patios that could last through the end of 2020, just as a relief valve for restaurants that either have to reduce their interior occupancy or to allow those folks that don't feel comfortable being inside establishments to have an outside option. So this will handle them on an individual one-by-one case. They'll come to us, they'll present a very limited site plan. We have a policy that indicates certain requirements that they must follow. We'll issue an approval letter, but it won't involve boards or commissions or permits or inspections or anything of that nature. So it's a work in progress, and that as we have gotten a first request, we're kind of learning on the fly, but we're trying to be adaptable to serve our businesses and to deal with these unique times. I can answer any questions if any council member has questions on this matter.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Madam President?
Councilwoman Heeman, and then Councilman Schuman.
Yeah, thank you, Director Lieber, for that explanation and the very quick work. I do want to commend Councilman Lieber, Director Lieber, for having actually started to look into this a little bit ahead of when my legislation was presented. So it went very smoothly and very quickly. Thank you.
Councilman Schuman.
I think it's a good idea. We got to get this in place as soon as possible. I'm sure that the director and her department will come up with some good rules for this. I have no doubt in my mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. The actual guidelines are attached to the resolution, and I think that they are very good. The date goes through December 30th, so I'm not sure how much patio dining there will be then, but with patio heaters and tents perhaps, or whatever choices other folks might want, you don't know. Any other comments, questions?
Councilman Broussard.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank my colleagues for bringing this forward. I really can't think of a particular ward in the city that doesn't have eateries and outdoor dining. So this is a good piece of legislation, and I appreciate it being brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Garreau.
Thank you. Just quickly, and I wanted to let council know, this is the resolution adopting this particular policy, but I wanted to let everybody know, as Director Lieber stated, we might have to do some ironing out a little bit. This is the framework. We might have to tweak it a little bit. I just want to let you know that it's not our intent to come back to City Council to make the adjustments as need be, because we're kind of doing this for the first time. So I don't expect any radical changes to it, but we may have to tweak it administratively just to make it work. So, if we do that, then we can certainly share with the council what we've done. The rough framework is there. It's really more than a rough framework. It's a substantial framework, but it might take a little bit of tweaking as we move. And I didn't want anybody to have any surprises if that's the case.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. I'd like to proudly also report that North Royalton is passing theirs today. A little ahead of ours, even though ours was first. I did get a call today from Councilman Marnichek thanking us for doing this, and they jumped right on it as well. Thank you.
Council members, any objection to suspension? Seeing none, the final piece of legislation to be considered for suspension of the rules this evening is Resolution 2020-57, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation to upgrade guardrails on Stearns Road in the city of North Olmsted. Mayor, were you going to have Director Glonner speak, or were you going to speak on this? To unmute.
Sorry about that. Is Don still there?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Don. You can handle it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Chair, this is a piece of legislation that came from the state. They plan to go out to bid the first week of June. They sent it out late, and then when they did send it out, they sent it to, I think, Pete's wrong email address, so he didn't get it till very late. It's no cost at all to the city. They come in and they replace the guardrails and the end rails up around Stearns Road over 480. They just want authorization to come in and do that work at their cost, but they have to go out to bid by June 4th, I think. Can you add to that? Pete, are you there?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's basically it. They just need our authorization, but there's no cost to the city.
Any questions from council at this time? Councilman Lippert.
Yeah, does this impact the fences over the 480 as well, or just the guardrails?
It's just the guardrails.
Thank you.
Any objection to suspension? Seeing none. I know that we have one piece of legislation, actually two pieces of legislation that will be amended this evening 2020-53 and 2020-55. Councilwoman Heeman, did you want to speak to ordinance 2020-55's amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The ordinance is being amended to only add an emergency clause. It will not be on suspension. The reason is to wait the 30 days really, kind of hinders the developer a little bit in that he can't apply for other applications and permits that he needs to start his true, development of the land and the building process. I spoke with Director Lieber about it. He apparently reached out to her, and sadly he didn't speak at our committee meeting, although we believe he was present, but he didn't jump in. So I didn't have the opportunity to ask him then. So it really has no impact on our community, on any of our safety, it has no impact on us that we let it go without the 30 days. Thank you.
Thank you. Assigning new legislation to committees on first reading, ordinance 2020-45, streets and transportation. Resolution 2020-58, streets and transportation. Resolution 2020-59, environmental. Resolutions 2020-60 and 61, recreation, public parks, and buildings. Looking to schedule council committee meetings for next Tuesday, May 26th. Councilman Lippert. You have to unmute, Councilman Lippert.
That would be a good start. If I could get a Streets and Transportation Committee meeting at 7 o'clock and ask that the Safety Service Director be there. And then, Mr. Gallagher, do you need anybody else for the sewer service, or will you handle that?
Which ordinance is that?
55?
45.
45, I mean.
And 48 and 58.
I'll look at it, and if I do, I'll have somebody come. I'll bring the necessary people.
Okay. And that would be probably about, let's plan for 15 minutes, so through 7:15.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to schedule the Environmental Control Committee to discuss 2020-59 at 7:15. And I would like to have Director Gallagher there. And Director Gallagher, do you think that we need someone from the wastewater treatment plant or someone from engineering, or both?
No, this is a mutual aid agreement for services between the different wastewater treatment plants.
Okay, thank you. And I will schedule until 7:25, if that's okay. I think sometimes we have some technical difficulties and it just eats up a few minutes here and there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly.
I'd like to schedule the meeting for the Recreation, Public Parks and Buildings starting at 7:25. And are there any other meetings after this? Any other committees? Okay,
Not
until
right.
we're done. So starting at 7:25 till we're done.
Okay. Thank you. Council members, is there anything else for caucus? Seeing none, we will conclude our caucus at 8:05 p.m.